Hey students, it's Mrs. T, and this is another discussion of how religion as a macro scale social institution affects other macro scale social institutions and norms and social facts and other parts of the macro scale social structure to shape our everyday lives. So all of these topics that we're discussing, remember, we're going to focus on macro scale stuff, but we're going to use micro scale examples to kind of offer proof that the macro scale social structure or the matrix or the maze that is part of our daily life affects our life experiences from day to day. Okay, so in this video, this is going to be a short introduction about a philosopher or economist or social activist or however you want to classify him, Karl Marx. We first discussed Karl Marx together in the social stratification chapters. That was Unit 3, I believe. That was the first time we really in detail discussed him. He was introduced in Chapter 1, I believe, early on. Anyway, Karl Marx is one of the philosophers, one of the major contributors to what we call conflict theory in sociology. And Karl Marx, during his lifetime, wrote a lot about the connection between other he wrote a lot about the connection between social stratification or social inequality, as I have written on the board here, and how it is connected with lots of other macro scale social institutions, such as the economy, capitalism in particular, which we've talked about before in Unit 3. We're going to revisit that in this video. And then also religion. So religion is a macro scale social institution. The economy is a macro scale social institution. Social inequality is a macro scale pattern within societies that have capitalism, and other religions like Hinduism that have a belief in social stratification built in to the faith system. You see that built-in social stratification idea that comes from religion in Hinduism affecting daily life and the positions, the ascribed statuses that people have in society. So we are going to focus on Christianity and capitalism and how it affected how Christianity in particular and capitalism particularly affected Karl Marx's outlook on social stratification. So that's what our first longer video lecture is going to be about. So I need you to go back into your your Unit 3 notes, which would be Chapter 7, Chapter 8, 9, and 10, and find the areas in there where we talked about Karl Marx, because you have a lot of review to do. I've given you a little bit of review on the board here, if you can see it down low where I've got it. Remember, in that social stratification unit, we drew a lot of ladders. Thank goodness, since straight lines I usually get right, but we drew a lot of ladders. However, when we talked about Karl Marx and his ideas about social stratification, this is more like a step stool rather than a ladder, because it only has two rungs, two layers of society. And so he had an explanation about those layers of society and how that occurred. And he said that capitalism, which was the economic system that he studied the most, because he came from a society where capitalism was in full force and the Industrial Revolution had taken off, and profit was the name of the game, and profit is a major component in capitalism. So capitalism, if you look back in those notes that you already have, you should have like a cyclical picture of capitalism where I've got like little arrows going from ownership of stuff at the top, usually I say that. So capitalism is an economic system that encourages you to own stuff, but it doesn't encourage you just to hoard it and not use it. It encourages you to take the stuff that you own, whether it's physical things, raw materials, intellectual property, like the degree that you're earning. It encourages you to take the stuff that you own and use that stuff to make a profit. Don't just let it gather dust. Use it to make a profit. And what's a profit? Profit is money over and above what it cost you to buy it, or what it cost you to maintain it, or what it cost you in time to complete something. So profit is a key component of capitalism, and the more profit you get, the better off you are. So capitalism encourages you to make a cycle with this ownership and profit. Instead of blowing all your profit, capitalism encourages you to take at least some of it, as much as is comfortable, and reinvest it into the business that you're in to begin with. When you reinvest it, you've got more stuff, you've got more ownership, a higher level of intellectual property like a master's degree, or a higher level of landscaping materials that you need like a leaf blower or something, that you're going to add to your lawnmower that you were using to earn your profit to begin with. So capitalism encourages you to own stuff, use stuff for profit, and reinvest some of that profit into more stuff. You start over with ownership and you keep around that cycle until you own more and you own more and your profit is higher and your profit is higher. But remember, in any society, there is a finite amount of resources. Finite means there is a limit. There is an end to the amount. So if capitalism encourages you to own stuff, but there is a limited amount of stuff for you to own to begin with, then over time, in Karl Marx's observation, in his analysis, Karl Marx said over time, you will end up with two and only two social classes of people. Who are they? We've said these words together before. The bourgeoisie and who? The proletariat. Okay? So the bourgeoisie are on the top, and I have a very brief reminder of what the definition of this is. You need to look in your notes for the longer definition. I will say it to you now, so pause me. I'm sure you'll get a really good snapshot of my face and making all kinds of crazy shapes. But anyway, pause it and write this down or find it in your notes previously. The bourgeoisie are also known as the capitalist class because they're the ones who are good at participating in that profit ownership cycle. And because there's a finite amount of resources in any given society, they are the ones who are the owners of, in the long run, all of the means of production and means of distribution in a society. So production, if you're making this shirt, for instance, it's made out of cotton, you need land, you need cotton plants, you need a way to pick it, and you need a loom to make the fabric and the thread. I think it's called a loom. You need a factory to actually sew it together. You need all of those things for the means of production. The means of distribution would include the trucks that carry it to the train depots and the trains and the oil refineries and the coal mines that get all of the fossil fuels that operate the trains and the trucks. And the means of distribution would be the website or the department store or wherever it is that you're selling these things. And so Karl Marx said the bourgeoisie, as far as economy goes and social inequality goes. So right now I'm leaving this out. This is a discussion about religion though, y'all, I promise. But right now we have to have a good review of this so that this will be on your mind and you'll be able to see the connection that Karl Marx saw between religion and these things. So the economy, in this case capitalism, social stratification or social inequality in general, in this case two social classes is what Karl Marx saw. The bourgeoisie, who are the owners of all the means of production and distribution in society, and the proletariat, who own what? What do they own? According to our notes from the past, they own their labor. The only thing they have is their elbow grease or their know-how. And if you have know-how that not everybody has, then the bourgeoisie has to pay you more for your labor. But if all you have is a little bit of elbow grease and every other person in the society has the same amount of elbow grease, you're not worth very much. And therefore, the bourgeoisie don't have to pay you very much for your salary, for the work that you do for them. You're very replaceable. And over time, Karl Marx said that the bourgeoisie simply begin looking at most of the members of the proletariat as disposable. They are merely social resources also. So life In Karl Marx's picture of capitalism and the bourgeoisie and proletariat interaction, life in the way he described it was not pleasant. Life for the proletariat was terrible. Poverty sucks. Can I say that? I hope none of you know it firsthand. Relative poverty is usually the kind of poverty that you and I know if we know poverty in the United States. Subjective poverty, much more likely. But the proletariat were the kinds of folks that at the time Karl Marx was writing about this, absolute poverty was affecting many of the members of the proletariat because there weren't enough jobs to go around, and if I could get a job, I didn't have enough skill to get a living wage, and so I could maybe buy only enough bread for my children and not for myself, and then I was sick and couldn't work, and then my kids would die from starvation. A terrible life is what I'm trying to describe. So this is the analysis that Karl Marx gave of a society built on the economic system called capitalism and how social inequality would evolve or would become if capitalism was left unregulated. He said bourgeoisie and proletariat, two classes, very few members of the bourgeoisie in society over time, and a whole lot of the rest of us. So keep this in mind. I'm going to stop the video here. Magic, the dry erase board will appear with new info on it. And we will now finally talk about what Karl Marx's analysis was about the link between religion and how the bourgeoisie used religious messages, in particular Christian religious messages in this example, because he was studying and examining and commenting on Christian society. So we will look at Christian religious messages and how religion in general can be used as a tool. The bourgeoisie can use it as a tool to control the proletariat. So, interesting stuff. Stay tuned or access the next video to find out more. See you soon. Bye.